We will talk now about transcending the state of grief as a state of consciousness. On the map of consciousness, grief is at the frequency of 75. It is a bit higher than apathy and guilt and shame. So we are raising above those states, although all of them are connected. And grief is about loss, to the deepest of the loss. And it doesn't only refer to the death of a loved one, the death of a person, and the loss of a person that we normally associate with the grieving process, but it's about loss in general. The loss of our childhood, the loss of what could have been, the loss of the life that we had, the loss of the life that we could have had, the loss of self, the loss of our investments, the loss of our wealth, the loss of job, the loss of relationships through separation, through divorce. So the deep, very profound state of loss and regret, the loss of what was and is no longer here, right now, and the loss of what could have been, might have been, should have been, but it's not here right now. And I love this story, the mustard seed story um, of the woman who lost her son. And of course, the loss of a child for a mother. It is very well the deepest, the most painful of losses, a parent losing their child. So the mom was going through such a deep grief, and she searched everywhere for and asking everyone for a cure for death. She would ask everyone, she would knock on every door, and nobody would have the cure. Nobody would be able to give her the return of the dead one. But somebody at one point directed her towards this wise being who was Buddha, and giving her some hope that maybe he would be the one to give her what she was asking for. So she met Buddha and asked him from the bottom of her mother's heart, "Can you please bring back my son to the living?" And Buddha told her, he gave her some hope and said, "Okay, I might be able to grant you your request, but first I will give you a task. And I will ask you to bring me a grain of mustard from the house that has never encountered death." So she felt hopeful, and she started on this mission of traveling from village to village, place to place, country to country, knocking on every door and asking every person she met, "Can you please give me the grain of mustard if you've never experienced, if you've never met loss and death?" And everywhere she knocked, everybody who would respond would give her the same answer. "Well, I lost my parent, I lost a dear friend, I lost someone." And she, no matter how far she would travel, she would go for days and weeks and years, she couldn't find the one house, the one home that has never met in one way or another the encounter with loss and death. So after years of searching and seeking, she finally returned to Buddha, empty-handed, but with a knowing, with a realization that she wasn't the only one meeting the deep pain of death, of separation, of loss and ending. But every human being has had this encounter. But this is a beautiful, powerful story that tells us that death and loss and sadness and longing, it's part of our human condition. And it's felt very deeply. And when we talk about the state of grief as a state of consciousness, grief is not just an emotion, it's not just a feeling, it's not just a process that we each go through at different points in our lives, but it's a state of beingness where we become trapped in this land. Grief becomes chronic. I use this metaphor with the weather and the climate to distinguish between different emotions and feelings and the states of consciousness. So, grief as a weather, we go when it's raining, when it's pouring, it's pouring, when there is time for tears and crying. It is that time, and we need to go through it as it is in that moment. There is no escape per se, there is no bypassing. But when we avoid that, when we avoid the pain of that, we move into suffering, and that's where we get stuck into this chronic state of being, of experiencing life through those lenses, the lenses of chronic loss, of irretrievable, unbearable loss and sadness and regret. And where is this coming from? It's coming from our experiences through the world, and it's actually coming very early on in life. Grief, it's about the loss, the perceived loss of what we are attached to the most, or who we are attached to the most. And in psychology, there is this theory of attachment explaining the process of learning how to relate to others, the learnings about relationships with what they call the primary caregiver, or the most significant people in our life. Could be the mother, the father, sometimes a grandparent, the one that we attach, bond with the most, and is the primary figure, the first human being that we connect with through attachment, through bonding. And this attachment phase in the first 2 years of life, through the way of relating to the number one caregiver, primary figure in our life, it's about safety, security versus insecurity. It's about oneness, belonging, connecting versus separation, abandonment, loss. So we learn in the first years of life the pain of separation, the pain of loss of the one that we are the most attached to. And at that time, through that cognitive developmental stage for the baby, for the little child, based on its ability to understand the world and to perceive what's happening, to explain what's happening for herself, for themselves at that stage. The child, the baby, doesn't have what in psychology is called the sense of object permanence. So when the parent leaves, the mom leaves the room or she goes to work, the child is not able to understand, to comprehend that that leaving is not permanent, but it perceives as if it's forever, it's irretrievable. It perceives it as if it's a death that will never return. So that loss, and it could be even stronger to these early experiences of that sometimes are very normal, are part of life. But again, based on the level of understanding, the way it's perceived, the way it's felt, when it's too painful, when it's too much, when it has no way of understanding what is the way it is, then that pain could be left in there, and it's the seed of what later on in life turns to be experienced and reactivated as grief and loss and the pain of separation. So the baby is not able to understand that again when the parent is out of sight, and I will talk about the mommy now as being, because the connection, the oneness with the mother through the birth process, through the feeding, through the mom becomes the object embodying the meeting of all the baby's needs and wants and wishes, starting with the physical needs, the nurturing, feeding through the breastfeeding, let's say, uh, the source of food, the source of nurturing, the source of safety. Safety, it's a primordial need, source of love, source of care, source of um, being cherished, being valued, deserving to exist in the mother's eyes. So the mother becomes the object. We put the baby, puts everything, the source of everything it needs, it wants, it wishes, the source of love itself. It's in the object, in the body, in the presence of the mother. So in this way, the mother or whoever plays that role, again, it doesn't have to be the mother, we call it the primary caregiver, they call it in psychology. So whoever is that one primary first being, human being, that becomes the embodiment and the source of all the little human beings' needs and wants and wishes. The source of care, the source of safety, of security, the source of nurturing, the source of love, the source of life itself. So that's the original point to this attachment process. And often we confuse the attachment with love itself, but it's not love. It's an attachment, it's a bondage, and with a projection. So this connects to the existential, spiritual core aspect of grief. Grief as separation, of split, of loss, of the one that is the source. I made it the source of my life in every way I need. source of my needs, source of my happiness, source of my love, source of my joy, source of everything that I see out there, I put out there. So, at the core, on a spiritual aspect, grief is about the misplacement of the source. So, in a spiritual aspect, the source of our life, of our being, of what we are, the source of life flowing through us, it's not in another, but we place it from where it is. We misplace it, we displace it onto another or onto something in the world out there. So we remove it, we separate it from where it is vertically, source of life that keeps flowing through us. We put it out there. And then when there is the fear of separation, even if before the separation comes, once we experience that pain of separation, abandonment, perceived loss, then we are afraid. We are afraid of losing it again. And with grief, it so happened that that ending, that loss, that physical separation, it's happening. It's happening because everything from the physical world, everything that is matter, it's subjected to the laws of matter, to the Newtonian laws. Everything that is of matter, including our physical body, it has an ending. It's just like in the seasons, the leaves in the fall. They are going to fall. They are going to be transformed to follow the cycles of the physical matter, physical life, and they are going to die, and they are going to be transformed again. The Lavoisier's principle. In nature, nothing is gained or lost. Everything is being transformed. So the physical matter, including our physical body, follows the same laws of transformation, of letting go, of going through the seasons of life, being born, following its life cycle, and then letting go and being transformed again. So when we look only at the physical aspect, yes, death as we see it, it's part of the cycle of life. And in my book, Flying Home, on the grief state, I included this most beautiful story about grief and loss, the story of Freddie the Leaf, written by Leo Buscaglia. It's one of my favorite stories about grief, where it uses the metaphor of the leaf, Freddie the Leaf, to express this process of loss and physical death and grief. So to be able to transcend the state of grief, we need to understand it. We need to understand its mechanism, its human mechanisms. And with that understanding, then we need to allow the process of healing itself, healing in the body. We cannot bypass the healing and just step directly into reasoning and understanding, and even the spiritual aspect, the consciousness aspects of it, because then we will skip the steps, and the body on an emotional, physical, mental, psychological level, it needs to go through that tunnel of healing to truly come out of it, the light, the understanding, the freedom out of it. So we cannot bypass the emotional, psychological healing aspects of it, because then it's disembodied, it's just concepts, it's just an escape from the pain, escape from the embodied aspect of it that it's still inscripted in us. So, understanding grief through the attachment lenses and also through the soul aspect, that at the core it's about the pain of separation that gets us back to the original fall from Eden, original separation, the original primordial fall and loss of oneness. And then in different ways through our life journey, whether on an emotional, mental, body, and soul level, that seems to be our life, seems to be all about the experience of searching, longing, the return to oneness, the return to wholeness as one, the return home, where from where we left, we split, we separated from. And I love this metaphor to understand it on a very concrete way, the metaphor of each of us being a cell that is part of the whole body. And the cell forgets that is part of the whole body, and it starts believing that it's on its own, it's separated, and it needs to survive on its own. It has to make it into the world, into this strange, dangerous place, the world on its own. It has to fight for its existence. It has to prove its worth. It has to belong. It tries to belong into the world, following the mechanisms, the laws, the rules of the world, the man-made rules that often are separated themselves, are disconnected from the laws of the universe, the laws of life, the divine laws that, if you want. And then we separate all together. We miscreate our own kingdom, our own ways, our own experiences of life. And that separation, it's perhaps the deepest primordial pain turned into the suffering of our human experience in this world. And again, the return, the longing, the deep longing for the return to oneness, to be one again with all there is, with life itself. And the process of grief, it's actually return to life, because we need death. We need to let go of what was, that it's no longer here. We need the leaves in the fall to set them free, so the tree can go through that stage and then go through the uh, renewal, preparing for renewal stage of winter, through the hibernation, and then to come back to life once again into the new season, into the spring. So death, it's an essential part of life. It's the death of the death of the old patterns, the death of what is no longer here, the letting go of the old to make room for the new. And we experience this process of grief again in our daily life. It's not, once again, it's not just about the death of a person, but we experience this difficulty of letting go through everything. It's the smallest things when we let go of the old, of what anything that we are holding on to, that somehow we still hold on to this rope, to this attachment out of fear. The fear that if I let go of this, it disappears, and the source of what I need disappears with it. So, once again, at the core soul level, grief is this developmental stage, if you want, of learning again and again to let go and to remember the true source of our needs, of our wants, of love itself, of life itself, and make this U-turn. So the source is not out there where we placed it, where we misplaced it early on. The source is within on a vertical axis. It's right here flowing through us, life flowing through us, within us. And that never dies. So understanding grief, and if you want, even practicing in our daily life this releasing, as if we are trying to squeeze life itself, the wind, water in between our fists, trying to hold on to it, and then releasing, setting it free. So more it's coming, life itself, it's filling the space. So when we transcend grief, we let what needs to die, to be set free, to make room for life that it's knocking on our door, on our windows. It's knocking to be met, waiting for us to open the door, to meet life, to give permission again, to be one with life, to allow life itself to follow its course, to follow its cycles, to follow the journey, and us joining that journey in life's terms rather than in our own forced ways terms, forcing life to be in our terms, to be what's not. So transcending grief, it's about letting go of the past, letting go of what was and is not here now. And everything that was is dead, it's ended, it's no longer here. Anything that happened yesterday back, it's no longer here. It's just a memory, it's just a story, just a picture album. And there is no need to hold on to it, because what is, the way it is here, including the pain of loss, that's what's real. So the antidote of grief is acceptance. Acceptance of what is as is now, including the pain of grief, including what it feels now. It is what it is, and this is reality. This is true versus made up story, fantasy. So stepping into what is as is now, the acceptance of all, is the way to freedom. is the way to life itself, remembering the source, being, returning to the wholeness, to the oneness with source itself, with life itself. And in this way, the resurrection happens, the coming into life, just like the seed. It's coming, breaking through the soil and bursting into life in the spring, like the phoenix bird coming, being reborn to life from its own ashes, of letting it die, of what needs to die in each of us. The old patterns, the old ways, the old coping mechanisms, the old skin, just like the caterpillar needing to release 7 layers of its own skin to be able to burst into the life of the butterfly of full spring, full life, experiencing life as a live, free, flying creature rather than as the old stages of the crawling, growing creature. So this is a wish for each of us, each the phoenix bird in each of us, the caterpillar butterfly in each of us, the life itself in each of us. So be it.